Hello all, this video is about money, your money, and I'm going to go over money tips that I've learned over the years. I'm going to go over some travel money planning and money mistakes to avoid based on my experience and the experience of many others. And by the way, welcome to the Philippines if you're one of that crew that hopes to travel to the Philippines. This video will focus a lot on Filipino experience, but a lot of the information will relate to money in general, travel in general. At the end of this video, I'm going to include 5-year money exchange charts for many nations, and I'll show you their number of resources where you can get that information if I have not included your nation's information. You do not want to run out of money anytime. You do not want to have access to your money at any time, especially when traveling in a foreign nation. When you can't go down, it's more difficult to contact your bank, your credit card company, try to straighten out those kind of situations. I'm going to share some of my experiences and the experiences of many other expats and tourists I'm aware of over the years traveling and the issues that they've run into with money. So anyway, let's get started with some of the tips. Let's get into the tips. Number one, it's going to cost you more than what you've planned. There is the very rare individual who takes almost everything into account and manages that budget very well, but that's very rare. Generally speaking, it's going to cost you more. I'm sure you've all experienced that. The Philippines, in particular, is a cash society still. There is a move to cashless society with various apps you have to load. You have to put money on a card such as Gcash. Gcash, Paymaya, different ones, Gcash being Globe, not Google Cash. And many establishments will take that for payment, but primarily it's a cash society, so you need to carry that money around with you. And what many foreigners think, they think with the exchange rate, gee, I'm pretty wealthy, and you start spending money like it is unlimited. You see opportunities, you see needs, and it's easy to start handing out money. And you would love to solve the world's problems and the poverty, but keep in mind your budget. Keep a good hold onto your budget and manage it well. Tip two: get your cash and keep cash on hand early and before you need it. I've got a couple of friends who've come here and heard other stories. They waited until they needed it, basically. And even though they had told their banks and their credit card companies that they're going to be out of country, um, the first time they went to use it, didn't work. Took them a couple times to call the bank, a couple days to call the bank, get everything situated so they could use it outside the country. So don't wait until the last minute. Now, foreign ATMs, many of them do not take international cards, especially once you get out of the cities. It is not unusual to come up with this ATM. This was when I traveled to Iloilo City a few years ago. I had to go 5 different ATMs. One took my card, wouldn't give me any money. I thought it wasn't going to give me my card back. And that's happened to a number of people I know. And it can take you several days to contact the proper company. The bank sometimes doesn't service these. It's a separate company. So you go to the bank and they put you in touch with a company that services these. And then it might take you a couple days to get your card back. Now, I often go to HSBC Bank. They've got one branch here in Cebu City, and I go there to take money out once a month because they don't charge me a fee. And my bank, Wells Fargo, gives me a really good exchange rate. So my Wells Fargo charges me $5. And there has been an occasion where their ATMs have been down, so I couldn't get it there. So I've got to go cross over to Ayala to get money at various banks. But in Iloilo, some machines do not take international cards, and I come across one bank, none of their machines did. And then I had, I think, one machine took my card but wouldn't give me any money. I finally got my card back. It finally spit it out. And I finally found one anyway. I was able to get some money. Now, many banks, all banks have limits how much, and then your bank has a limit also. So when I first came here, Wells Fargo would allow me $300 a day, and they've upped that substantially in the last year. I asked them to increase it because that meant I had to go to the ATM several times to get rent money. Many banks have a 10,000 peso limit per transaction, I believe, or per day, 24 hours. Not sure the actual restriction. I think BPI has a 20,000 peso, about 200, a little less than 200 US dollars. And HSBC allows 40,000. And somebody told me Citibank has the same 40,000, even if you don't have an account at the bank. Banks and their ATMs are also set up with various networks. Now here I have a Discover card, and Discover card was showing there, and yet my Discover debit card doesn't work in any of these, and I checked online. And I think they have one bank in Manila that takes the Discover debit cards. And I think my Wells Fargo is either a plus, I think they're part of the plus system. So you need a card, a bank that is part of one of these networks, or it probably is not going to work. Now, I know a number of people use credit cards when their debit card doesn't work, and that's generally a high interest rate. For credit card, I use a couple of Capital One credit cards, a MasterCard and a Visa, and they are one of the companies that do not charge extra fees for foreign transactions. So I often use it in the grocery store, especially if I'm buying business-related items. So I have a receipt, a better receipt that way. Charles Schwab out of America, you've got to be in the United States, I think, to apply for that. And then they send you a card verifying your address, and they may charge you, but then they refund all charges, all foreign charges. So if a bank here charges you 250 pesos, I think they even return those charges to you once a month. I would suggest, because what's going to happen, a lot of the comments, people are going to comment and share their experiences with ATMs and money transfer companies and that type of thing. Read through the comments and come back a few days later and read through additional comments, because you can learn a lot from others' comments and experiences. How much money are you allowed to bring into a country? In the Philippines, my understanding is you can bring in 10,000 up to 10,000 US dollars or the equivalent without declaring it. If you bring in more than $10,000, you have to declare it. I run into a guy a few years ago who was thinking about buying 2 studio condos, a really good deal, less than 2 million pesos, Philippine pesos. So right around less than 40,000 US dollars at the time with the exchange rate. And he was really worried about trying to bring that money in. He was going to go back, and he was trying to figure out a way to do that. And I think he was suggesting that if I was going to travel, I could bring some of his money back for him. But I didn't. I wasn't traveling. Number one, didn't really want to get involved in something like that. Each country will have different rules, so you need to be aware of that. The larger amount, of course, the more likely you're going to be questioned to prove that you did not get it illegally. And there are instances where people have had large sums of cash. I know there are videos online in the USA where people search somebody's luggage, and they find a large sum of money, and they don't have proof of where it came from, and the law enforcement will confiscate it. Credit cards. I've found that credit cards are often accepted in the malls, but not all stores in the malls. Some stores will not accept foreign credit cards, for instance, I've found. Uh, I've been to a store to buy a phone in the mall, and I had to go down. A lot of times, several of these stores are owned by one owner, and they might have a credit card terminal just in one of their stores. So I had to go walk down to another one of their stores to process my purchase. I've found that some resorts and hotels will not take credit cards, which can be a shock. If you're on another island, you're traveling, you brought a certain amount of cash along, expecting to use your credit card at many places, and no, we just take cash, sir. So then you're searching for an ATM machine um, on an island that might have one ATM machine that will accept foreign cards, and it may or may not be working or have cash that particular day. I've had that issue. I do often use, over half the time, I use a credit card in the grocery store rather than carrying that much cash, and hardware stores in the mall, various places. But they're, like I said, you don't think that you're going to use it every place you go. I've also had the instance when I went to, I think it was Camotes Island, and some other place also, where they accepted foreign credit cards, but their internet was down, so they had no way to process it. In fact, I had to wait till the next day. They let me stay, and then they processed it the following day when they had internet again. Money transfers here in the Philippines and many nations around the world is big business. There are many companies involved in that around the world. Palawan Pawn Shop is one of them, and they've got many offices around the Philippines. So sooner or later, you're going to be requested to send money to somebody somewhere in the Philippines. There are a number of others. LBC, M.H. Luhilier, I believe, Cebuana. There's many others as well. Several of them are large chains with offices, many offices here in Cebu City, Mandaue City, and you don't go down too many blocks before you run into one of them. You have the option of going down to a money transfer company and giving them cash money and them sending it, filling out a form, who you want to send it to, or you can do it online by linking to your bank account or your credit card. Now, this is something, XE is one of the money transfer companies, and I was doing some research there, and I wanted to get a quote on what their transfer rate was. And I was logged in from the Philippines, and they said, sorry, we can't send money from your country yet. So I used a VPN, a virtual private network. They have free ones and they have paid ones. And do your research if you're interested. Um, so then I logged in from the USA, and VPN, you can log in from various countries around the world. And then, for instance, if I log in from Japan, I start getting advertising on my internet for Japanese products. If I log in from U.S. products, that's the way it goes there. Jumping over to Palawan Pawn Shop, Palawan Express, they are very popular, and they're on about every other corner here. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they use them to send money amongst family and friends and overseas. And so I've used them a number of times, and there's information down here. They've got international partners, over 55 international partners, and here's some of their global partners right here. Transfast, Remitly, you can World Remit, Xoom, which I've used a number of times. They are owned by PayPal, as a matter of fact, and don't give me the best exchange rate. And then They one day I wanted money from them, and they asked me to prove I was really me after I had used them many times, and so I went back to the ATM because I wanted money that day. I didn't want to have to send them proof that I was me and wait for a day or two for them to decide. Western Union I used many years ago. It seems like they are the most strict. RIA and the various ones here. LBC has offices around the world, I guess, as well as many here. They're big delivery service as well. And Remitly, I've used Remitly in the past, and then one day they said, "Oh, they canceled my we shut down your account. We think you're fraudulent." After I'd used them, and I've heard that story from a number of people. And what I've been told, I don't know if it's fact, but I've been told many times by various people commenting, is that they have their own like credit rating amongst these companies, and once one company's computer algorithms think that you're not legit, they'll shut you down across many of these platforms. So, I used World Remit, I think, once. Sent myself $1,000. I was getting ready. They said, "Okay, it's ready to pick up," and I was going out the door, and I got a text message, and it was them saying, "We canceled your transaction." And I called them, and like I called Remitly here, tried to find out what's the problem, tried to resolve it, and they said, "Well, yeah, they're our computers don't trust you for some reason, and we can't tell you why, and we can't change it. That's the way it is." So anyway, banks that these people are a member of, most of the banks here, Hong Kong, they've got certain, and that's another thing. Certain countries don't have all these other uh, companies, money transfer companies. So Hong Kong has a group of partners there. The Middle East, a different group. Malaysia, certain companies specialize in certain parts of the world. USA, Lucky and Uniteller. I've seen the name Uniteller around. Canada, something else. Singapore, Southeast Asia, Guam, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, Cambodia, Wingbank. And another company here, M. Lou Hillier, if I pronounced that right. Quarta Padala means send money, I think. And they've got a number of product services. And I've used them on a number of occasions just because they were convenient. They've got a couple of stores in J Center Mall where I used to go a lot to have coffee with friends, and they've got go down here to their list of international partners, and it's a long list, and they don't have them separated out by country or by bank versus. Anyway, it's when you send money, whoever you choose to send money through, Wells Fargo, for instance, and I'll get into banks here shortly as well, bank-to-bank transfers. Anyway, when you choose a money transfer service to send money to somebody, the Filipina that you're going to send money to may have a would probably have a preferred method that may or may not be available in your country, so you'll have to work that out. There are limits. Each one has limits, what they do, what countries they send money to, how much they will send at any given time, and sometimes you can build up the amount that you can send, even if you want to send it to yourself, which I did for a long time. I would send myself money and then go pick it up myself. But that's always the question. If I send money, where do I pick it up? Well, you can choose, and whatever service you use, you will have many choices. In 99% of the cases, you can go to the banks that they partner with to pick up the money. You can go to one of these others, like a Lou Hillier or a Palawan, or like Xoom had partnerships with several of these. Cebuano. There's dozens of money transfer companies here. So you just choose which one you're going to go to. Bring a couple picture IDs with you, prove that you are you. A company called Cebuano, which is very popular here as well. One day, because I was picking up $100 bills, Lou Hillier and Ayala Mall didn't have any hundreds, didn't have enough hundreds anyway. And it was going to be several hours before they had their delivery. So I went down the hallway in Ayala Mall to Cebuana and asked them, do you have this many $100 bills? Yes. And the reason I would do that, I would get a better exchange rate. Rather than sending myself pesos through Xoom, I would get a better exchange rate. If I send myself $100, I get $100. And then I would take it to the money exchange in Ayala Mall and exchange it there, and save me, I think, about $20 by doing it that way. A little bit of a hassle, but for 20 bucks, I can put up with a few minutes of hassle. And Cebuano was the only one who actually had me fill out a form, my name, address, all this kind of stuff. And they have me in their system now, and they send me emails occasionally. Otherwise, it's just show 2 pieces of identification, and it's been that easy. One important point I should have mentioned early on before I get into banking is you want to bring the larger bills, bring 100s or 50s, because the lower the denomination, the lower the rate of exchange you're going to get. Bring new bills or very new bills. If they are torn, if they are written on, if they are crumpled, if they look dirty, many places won't take them, period. Nobody's going to take them. So that's going to be a problem for you. Even these street money changers. And there are a lot of places to exchange money. Some give a little bit better exchange than others. Usually the street people like this, open 24 hours, give the least exchange rate. I went to my Wells Fargo bank branch a little more than a week before I was getting ready to travel to the Philippines, and asked them for new $100 bills. And they did not have a stack of $100 bills, is what they told me anyway. But she did go through a bunch of bills that looked very, very neat and clean. And I chose to take those, and I didn't have any problem when I got to the Philippines exchanging those. When I got to the airport, I exchanged 100, about 5,000 pesos worth at the airport, and then they give you big bills, and then make sure to ask for some smaller bills, or your taxi driver's going to tell you, I don't have change for that, sir. And on to banking and loans, and I am really looking forward to the comments of the many of you who've had experience. I'll tell you some of my observations and information that I have. In virtually all cases, as a foreigner here, you're going to need an ACR card, and you get an ACR card, Alien Certificate of Registration. You apply for it after you've been here 60 days. And then you get it, and there's some banks that are more open. Banks in certain areas are more open to foreigner deposits than other places. And in the USA, a U.S. citizen, very easy to walk into just about any bank, make a deposit, and open up a checking account, savings account. I think still, I don't know if it's gotten harder. I don't know how difficult it is for foreigners to do that same thing. There again, it would depend upon the bank, I suppose. My understanding in the Philippines, and goes for many things, is sometimes it helps who you know. If you have a reference from somebody that banks at the bank you want to bank at, a reference, somebody who can say, hey, yeah, this guy's okay. After you get your ACR card. And I know a number of foreigners who have bank accounts here and have no complaints. I know 1 or 2 foreigners who've changed banks because they had issues with the banks, but that can happen any place in the world. I believe that JR with JRC Visa Consultancy and Immigration Services in dealing with, for instance, the SRV, the retirement visa, um, and with real estate issues because he's got a real estate broker's license as well. I believe he's helped some foreigners who have done business with him, helped them open up bank accounts. I believe at BDO Bank. And I know people who have had accounts at China Bank as well as BPI Bank, foreigners. Um, I have heard over the years and seen in other people's videos that if this bank won't open up an account for you, go down the street to another bank and another one. Sooner or later, you'll find a bank manager who will be happy to open up a bank account for you. That's just what I've heard. As far as loans, if you're going to buy property, a condominium, for instance, foreigners cannot own land here. If you're going to start a business, you want a business loan. Of course, it's going to depend upon, like any place, it's going to depend upon how many assets you have, what your income is, and, what your age is, a number of things. I've been told by some real estate people that it's generally pretty difficult if you're 65 or older to get a long-term real estate loan here. And the real estate loans are much shorter than they are in the U.S., 30 plus years in the U.S. oftentimes. So in summary, this would be any place in the world pretty much. Uh, Plan ahead, make sure you have enough money to not just survive, but do much better than that, because you will have unexpected expenses, medical, dental, legal issues, what have you. You're going to have those. Unless you have a money tree that constantly produces fruit for you, like most of us, we need to plan. We need to plan for disruptions. We need to plan for problems and issues and extra expenses. So I suggest, especially if you're traveling, always have 2 or 3 ways to access your money. Don't wait until the last minute to access that money, because you may run into roadblocks along the way. Keep good track. Keep good track of what you're spending money on, because especially in a foreign country, it can get away from you real easy. If you're on some type of budget, you have limitations like I think 90% of the expats do. It can be easy with the exchange rates to lose track how much you're spending on what you're spending it on. And things can change. A country's how they treat foreigners, how inviting they are, that can change. It can become more expensive, more difficult with restrictions. So have a plan in case you have to leave for some reason. Have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Do you have money to survive in another place? You're in a different culture, different country, different rules, different regulations, and just learn about those rules and cultural norms. Don't be afraid to ask questions there's online forums. Ask questions of other expats. They've got a lot of experience. You might get you might get a lot of crazy advice, but you might get some good advice as well. And don't be afraid to ask Filipinos as well for their advice. I know I did not cover exhaustively all the topics. I'm looking forward to the comments, additional advice from all of you in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe. Hopefully we can all travel freely again very soon. See you next time.